Well, the name of the book is "Don't Shoot Where Republicans." Jack Owens is with us. Had a some people think a legendary career with the FBI. I don't know, but he was so enamored with the bureau that when it was all over, he wrote a book entitled "Don't Shoot Where Republicans: Memoirs of the FBI Agent Who Did Things His Own Way." Jack, we've got a lot of ground to cover, but I appreciate you coming up.
Oh, thank you, Paul. It's good to be here. What agents do is interview. We interview. And to be a good agent, you have to be a good interviewer. More than anything else, that's what we do, and that's why we're hired. Agents are hired on the basis of their communication skills.
What's the secret to that? What's the key to getting information and doing it correctly?
Being patient, preparation, knowing the subject you're talking to as much as you can about the person across from you, but knowing your subject matter and take nothing for granted. Be prepared, and the FBI is.
In terms
we bumper locked him and watched him for a while until we got more evidence. We got a search warrant. Went into his house, went into his car, and there we found all this evidence from the victims. He was murdering some of these young men in his bedroom, and carpet fibers from his bedroom were on the victims, and that led to his conviction. Williams was convicted on circumstantial evidence, on lab evidence, Paul, and he did not get the death penalty. He's still serving time in Georgia, and occasionally he will surface in the media and do an interview saying, "I'm innocent. I didn't commit these crimes. I should be released." But he's guilty. We know he's guilty. We nailed him on the lab evidence. The profile was absolutely dead on as to who we were dealing with. I was amazed at how good they are. But you have to demystify profiling, and they will demystify it for you. What I mean is this. Profiling is good police work at crime scenes. The police collect the evidence. They do more crime scenes than the FBI does. And when they get to a point where they may not feel that they're running in the right direction, particularly in the serial killer case like Wayne Williams, they will ask the FBI to help, the behavioral sciences unit. One of my friends who I played football with in college was in that unit, and I got to watch how they worked. If you read John Douglas's books, you'll get a good idea of how they work. It's very painstaking, and you just don't fly off and make assertions. It's based on what police do at crime scenes. And police in the United States, when they give the FBI their work in a crime scene, it's good. It's good. If we can come up with a profile and it works like Atlanta did, it worked because of the police at the crime scenes.
David, next.
You talking about the details of that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I guess all serial killers are fascinating because it's just hard to comprehend what goes through somebody's mind like that.
Yes.
But you said the profiler was dead on.
Yes.
Does he also say why that somebody like this commits that crime? John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer. Why does somebody commit that crime? Does the profiler state that also? And I'll hang up listed to your answers.
Excellent question. The cases where I worked involving profiles, and one of them was Wayne Williams, the other was the assassination of Judge Vance. The profilers were interested in motive, to be sure, and discussed motive with us, but what they were coming up with was based on evidence at hand that might not deal with motive. I mean, you have to think about motive. Why would somebody do this? I'll give you an example, though, of how motive, if you just go on motive alone, you can go the wrong way. In the Judge Vance case, we thought we were dealing with a white supremacist because, in addition to the pipe bombing murder of Judge Vance in his Mountain Brook home, bombs were sent to other places. And one bomb was sent, a pipe bomb was sent to a black attorney in Savannah, Georgia, who opened the device, the box, in his office. It blew up and killed him. Other threats and bombs were sent to the NAACP in Atlanta. And so the FBI initially looked into white hate groups, and one of the areas that I worked on that case was the Klan and white supremacists. And I had an informant who was traveling worldwide involved in terrorist groups. He was monitoring them. And I talked to him, and I began to interview known white extremists around Alabama, and they were running away from this crime. They couldn't talk to me fast enough. He said, we had nothing to do with this. And you know, that turned out to be the case, because Walter Leroy Moody from Rex, Georgia, who murdered Judge Vance, was angry because the judge was the last federal appeals judge to turn down his appeal. He wanted to be an attorney, Moody did, and he could not be if he had this conviction. He was a very tough person to deal with. He had tried to blow up a car dealer once for selling him a bad car. And one of the ways this case was broken was...
I've thought about the same thing myself.
Well, we can all kind of identify with that. But ATF had some information in their files on Walter Leroy Moody when Judge Vance was murdered and the attorney in Savannah. And one of their agents said, hey, this looks like a previous case we had 10 years ago. The guy went to the Atlanta penitentiary on this. And that opened up our inquiry into Walter Leroy Moody. But consider this. The FBI was working several hundred suspects. I was going one way and agents were going another. And 6 months after Judge Vance was murdered, we had the guy who did it. And the FBI is equipped to do that kind of investigation. We're a nationwide organization, and you can't kill a federal judge in America. If you do, the entire weight of federal law enforcement will come down on you. They won't let go.
Thanks, Joe. You did undercover and covert operations. Since you are locked into this country as an FBI agent, give us an example of your other life when you would take off and be someone else.
I assumed another identity, Paul, to work against a spy from East Europe. And that case went for 4 years and evolved into many countries over there and then into Moscow and the Soviet Union. And I prepared for that case by getting schooled in the business I was going to represent. I didn't know anything about this business, and I learned about it. I got a new driver's license and a different name. I'll assume a name. Let's just say I chose Jack Daly. I remember going to DMV to get my new name driver's license, and I'd finished all the information, and the lady said, I was posing as a businessman. I would go to Washington to meet with a spy, and his tasking was to meet as many American businessmen and scientists as he could meet. Not that I had access to classified information. My business was not like that. But he thought that through me, I might, and I had friends, I told him, in Huntsville and in Birmingham in the national security business. I made myself attractive to him, but he wanted to spend time with me. But I began to like the guy, too. And I found out, Paul, that our adversaries during the Cold War were tough, well-trained, well-financed. They're patriotic. They love their families. And they're tough to turn. And the particular target that I went against, he was a Boston Celtics fan. He loved country music, and he wanted his family to go to school in the Ivy League in America.
How tough is it to assume that role and to play it out?
I found it was a lot of pressure at first till I got comfortable. I knew when I was meeting him in a foreign embassy that I was on that embassy's territory, and I could not be helped by the FBI. And I knew they were recording everything I said to him, and they were filming it. I was a little nervous at first, but I got to know him. He was easy to deal with. He was a spy. I was a spy. In the Bureau, we call that ducks. You know, if it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck, and that's what he was.
Would it be more difficult? How tough is that, dealing with informants and trying to gauge the veracity of what they tell you and why they're telling you?
You have to be very careful with informants, and the FBI is agents from the start of their careers are told to be very dainty with these people and vet what they're telling you. I developed assets who wanted to be paid, and then I developed many assets and informants who would not take money. Most of them would do it for money of some kind. When you're working a criminal case, Paul, you tend to get down and dirty locally with criminals, and you develop ears in the community and eyes in the community. And many agents are good at doing that. When I began to work counterintelligence, the type of information changed. I went from checkers to chess, and I developed assets, and they were very patriotic people, and they would not have thought of taking money for what they were supplying to the FBI.
And we deal with this a lot on the program in terms of someone making an allegation, calling the NCAA, whatever. But I would imagine in the FBI, for both of those avenues that you just referred to, you get calls every day, and
yes.
Some of them are telling the truth. Though, how do you know? You
have to respond to every call you get. I'll give you an example. The Patty Hearst case, which is famous for us, may not be to your viewers, but that was a nationwide case, a nationwide manhunt for her. We got calls here in Birmingham saying, "No, the Patty Hearst is at the YMCA." So,
under her own name.
So I put on my racquetball outfit and I went to the Y, and we would respond to all the calls. And as happened, Paul, when she was finally arrested in San Francisco, a call came in saying Patty Hearst is at this apartment, and an agent who doubted the information went there anyway and knocked on the door, and Patty Hearst opened the door. So you have to carry out all leads.
How different would it be?
The Bureau's jurisdiction is internal. We're a counterintelligence agency. The Bureau stops spying activities inside the United States. The CIA, on the other hand, is an intelligence gathering organization. They work covertly overseas.
How did 9/11 change what the FBI does?
The emphasis on terrorism changed dramatically. Neither the FBI nor the CIA are part of Homeland Security. The Bureau is still autonomous. The mandate from President Bush was, you guys start talking to each other and do it now. And I think that is happening. I know the Bureau is very, very good at working terrorism. And the FBI, Paul, and this office here in Birmingham has big footprints in Afghanistan, agents interrogating prisoners of war. And that is a very common FBI investigation. Since I don't have an accounting degree, I didn't work bank frauds, but the Bureau is very good at it. And the Bureau will not go to a grand jury or go into court trial unless they have the information to convict. Paul, the 30 years I was in the FBI, we never went to trial against an innocent person. We had to prove it. And whatever guessing, but let's assume that the FBI, per judicial approval, has wiretaps going on a bank fraud case.
Okay.
And listening to those wiretaps.
This is about to get interesting here.
The main conversation you get, say, in Alabama on a wiretap is sex, money, and football. Now, the FBI is looking to build a criminal case of bank fraud. Whatever is collected during those wiretaps is not pertinent. If it's not pertinent to the bank fraud case, will not be released by the FBI. So,
if something came up that was extraneous to the bank fraud case but was certainly interesting to someone else, would the FBI let someone know what in some other organization or even the NCAA, or could they? If
the extraneous information involved some federal violation that was not that case, the FBI would certainly run with it and talk to other agencies. If it does not involve federal violation, the FBI will not make it public.
So the FBI is not going to call the NCAA and say, hey, you may want to listen to this wiretap.
No, they're not going to do that.
They're offering Cam Newton. The name of the book, again, is Don't Shoot. We're Republicans, memoirs of the FBI agent who did things his own way. Jack Owens spent 30 years working for the Bureau, and the last hour and a half with us, and it has been absolutely fascinating.
Thank you, Paul. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate it very much.
What a great segment as we wrap up this week. We'll see you Monday.